I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is Project Architect 2. So today is going to be a big day. We're going to be working on fading matter. But I did want to take a step back and just kind of take a look at our humble beginnings and to kind of take a step back and just sort of appreciate some of the early things that we did in this playthrough. For example, like our early EMC farms that are still up and running, or our little humble abode right here at the beginning of the series. Oh, and it's still being used now. I feel like sometimes it's just nice to take a step back and go, where did I start in this world? But enough of that. It's time for us to dive back into the research facility. There we go. And this is where all the magic is taking place. And so today we're going to be diving, like I said, into fading matter. And what's important about fading matter? Well, the EMC value that you're going to get from it. And so what exactly does this mean, you might ask? And why do I even need a ton of EMC? Well, for the in-game, of course. Now, if I open up my quests and I go underneath the EMC mastery, we have the final star section. And the final star is actually what requires a ton of EMC. And it also is still going to require this fading matter. So all of this is going to be essentially up to you getting enough EMC in order to craft this thing. Most of the components here are EMC based, so you should be fairly well off if you have the EMC. And at the moment, we don't. So the process of making the fading matter, which is going to grant us a whopping 890 billion EMC per operation, just really comes from the Archium, 5 millibuckets of antimatter going through an antiprotonic nucleosynthesizer, and that's basically it. Now, to make the antiprotonic nucleosynthesizer, which is a mouthful in itself, that requires 2 pellets, but I do give you the 2 pellets back for your first craft. Now, if you're going to make more of these, you are going to need more pellets in order to technically upscale your production. Now, let's head on over into the Mekanism area and let's take a look at how many pellets do we actually have at this point. So that is happening over here at our SPS, and it looks like we have 7 pellets in here. So we almost have 8. With just a little bit more antimatter built up, we'll have ourselves 8 pellets, and that would allow us to make quite a few actually. Actually, we actually have antimatter in here, so we actually do have 8. Never mind. So this is perfect, and this will allow us to make at least 4 of these if we want to. Technically 5 because we get an extra one back. Now, I don't think we're going to be needing those. So I'm not super worried about the making of them just yet, because I'm not producing, I think, enough antimatter to really utilize all of those. But that will definitely change in the future, because as soon as we make our first star, our final star, first one, we can actually use it to generate infinite amounts of antimatter. So I think today we should go ahead and get this antiprotonic nucleosynthesizer set up and get it running for the first time. And so let's go ahead and craft this thing. There we go. So it says alchemy, but make it sciencey. Yeah, that sounds pretty nice. And of course we get our antimatter back, and I get a block of diamond out of all the things I could have gotten. But now that we have this, we can produce our first fading matter. And like I said, that is where some real EMC gains start to happen. Now, I do have some antimatter that is actually stored inside of here, and I want to get it out. And you can use a gauge dropper to actually pick contents, for example, directly out of here. You just click on it, and that will allow you to pick those contents out. And it does look like I am producing some too fast. There we go. I'm going to take that out. Perfect. And now we should have the antimatter, of course, building up in here. And what I want to do is I want to lead that out into this antiprotonic nucleosynthesizer for right now. And so to do this, I should be able to use a pipe. Sorry, not a pipe, but a tube, right? And we are going to need a configurator. And I'll just lead this directly out and directly into the back here. And so what we should see is antimatter now going into this machine. And then I can take my dropper here that has our contents, and I can actually go ahead and right click this, and it allows me to transfer that gas around. Very, very convenient little tool this gauge dropper is. And as far as power goes, I'm just going to place a point directly on the bottom here, making sure we can maintain our power correctly and make sure everything is set up as it should be. So I think this is all ready to go. Now this is going to cost a bit of power to operate. And we're going to I actually kind of want to monitor how much power this uses. I think it'll tell me down here, but we are going to need ourselves some archium, and thankfully we have a few of them. So each time I do this, it's going to ramp our EMC value up by 800 billion. That is a lot. So almost 1 trillion EMC will be generated in this process. And we're gonna need several trillion EMC. So as soon as I put this in here, we can see that actually operated, and it was actually very quick, and produced 1 fading matter. That is amazing. And as soon as I put that in here, it is now learned, and we have now successfully done research and converted things down into that fading matter. As it says here, the archium block is subjected to the torrent of antimatter within an antiprotonic nucleosynthesizer, yielding the elusive fading matter, a substance of fleeting yet potential EMC essence. Now I am going to need to automate this because we are going to need a ton of this stuff in order to actually make our first creative items. Now to set up the automation for this, it is going to be quite simple. So right here we have our EMC link, and it has to be of a tier that is appropriate for the amount of EMC needing to be sent back. The return doesn't really matter, but I'm keeping them the same color just for aesthetic reasons. Now I want to go ahead and set this to the archium, and then I'm going to use an item transposer, and inside of the config I have the input on the left and the output on the right, and auto eject is on. And then I just need to configure this to allow this in like so. And by the way, this is using 4 million RF per tick to run. I love the sound, by the way, it's so sick. And then I just set this like so, and we should start seeing EMC gains that are pretty nice. Now we are going to run out of antimatter, which is good because we need to be using it. And it looks like we're generating about 5 antimatter per 15 seconds, which is not too bad, but you can really start to see those EMC gains going super, super high. Now, quick little tip about this sound mod. If you actually are trying to look for a specific sound, I know it's right here. You can actually hold shift and delete this list. And then when you reopen it, it's only going to show the sounds that you have recently heard. For example, this is the one that makes that noise. And so I'm going to set it to be kind of soft. I still want to hear it because I really enjoy that sound, but you can see right there, beautiful. And our EMC values are skyrocketing. We are already at like almost 300 trillion EMC now. And this right here is essentially the final tier, the final stage of our EMC automation / duplication setups. Now, while I'm allowing some EMC to start to build up, which we're definitely going to need, I need to start actually focusing on another task that does involve create. And now I've never actually made this before, so it's going to be kind of interesting. Now I've used the mod create enchantment industries, but I've never actually made the hyper experience, which technically allows you to kind of over enchant. For example, if you had like, I don't know, sharpness 5, you could get sharpness 6 with that mod. Of course, I love enchantment industries simply because you can duplicate or copy enchantments, which is very, very nice. But in this case, we actually need to make this thing called hyper experience. So hyper experience is pretty interesting. It's going to require a very specific experience, which is this liquid experience right here. And we also need superheated blaze burner, which thankfully we've already kind of solved that problem as well without needing to make blaze cakes. But we need a liquid experience first. And there's a couple of ways we can get it. We can go about it with enchanted bottles. This is one way that we can make it. But we can actually use our already existing experience, and we can pipe it in and convert this with an experience rotor into liquid experience that the mod actually needs. Now, to be able to get that in experience rotor, it does require a nugget of experience, and there's a couple of ways you can get this. You can get it by crushing, for example, mobs in a crushing wheel, or crushing any raw ore inside of it. Or you can actually find it in the stronghold, and it's pretty prevalent in the stronghold. I think that's where I have most of mine from, is just from looting chests that were inside of the stronghold. Now, this process is going to be pretty interesting to me, as I've never done it before. So I'm going to place in a basin. I'm also going to use a mechanical mixer right here. And then I'm also going to grab from Cyclic some lights. So there are some very fancy lights that you can get called Spark right here. And these kind of work like invisible lights, and I've used them quite a bit throughout the base. I'm just going to use them right here to kind of illuminate this area a bit more. Now I'm going to head on over here and I'm going to grab my current experience that is stored in that experience crystal. And then I'm going to place down a new one. Just kind of let that kind of do its thing. And what we're going to do is we're going to utilize the experience that's inside of this that's been collecting from our mob farm. Now, kind of testing here, as I've never done this before, I'm going to have an input pipe that is going to accept the experience, and I'm going to place that right here. So we should be able to pull the experience into this basin. And then inside of this basin, I'm going to have that experience rotor that is going to just be the item in here that does the conversion. Now, on the outside, we're going to have a pipe. Now, you can actually filter with these advanced pipe upgrades. It is recommended to do that because the basin will allow you to pull all fluids that are inside of it out of it. And we don't want that to happen. So to be able to set the filter before getting any of this going is going to be pretty nice. And we can do that by placing this in here. And then we can hit add. And we need to set in JEI by hitting A on here, set that fluid that we want it to be set to. And then we just drag it in here. And it should hopefully set a fluid type. Maybe I have to look for it. Maybe the other side of JEI will work. And it might have to actually be a bucket of it. I don't know. Oh, it might actually help if I was underneath the fluid tab when I did this. Oh, goodness. So I'm going to set this here to the fluid. There we go. Now I can submit. Now, underneath these settings, it being an item, it should not send. I'm actually going to change my tank. And make sure it's a tank that does not have an inventory slot. For example, like a singularity tank. I think that'd be fine. And we can set that right here. That way we can tap applied energistics into it or what have you. So there we go. So that is now filtered and should only pull that out. The only thing we now need to do is hook in a motor and get that spinning. So let's get this placed in the right way. And hopefully this will function correctly. That, of course, is the goal. I'm going to place that on here. That's going to start spinning. It's not up to speed. Let's go ahead and speed that up. And then let's go ahead and start sending the experience in. Okay, and there we go. So it is now working and is now producing that liquid experience that we actually need from the Enchantment Industries mod. Now for the blaze burner for the next part, I'm going to go ahead and use a rolling mill, and we need to make a straw. So the way this straw is going to work by utilizing some bamboo is it allows us to send fluid into the blaze burner, where normally you'd have to have like an item right clicked on it. But in this case, we should be able to get it done this way. So let's get a hopper and we'll just place that on here real quick, just like so. Place the bamboo, hand crank, and then we'll just crank ourselves a single straw. Now, the fluid that is required for this, we're actually already producing, which is pretty darn nice. So let's go ahead and head on over to the area where we're producing that fluid, and let's see if we can get it hooked into our applied energistics, if it's not already. Now that special fluid that I need is this refined fuel that we have here that is coming from our fractionating stills, and I should be able to tap into the back here by connecting a cable through and just placing in a storage bus. Oh, that's perfect. And then we'll make sure to partition this, and everything should be good so long as it's partitioned and ready to go. And we now have access it through a network. Now to make this as super simple as possible, I'm going to go ahead and also put a storage bus on this singularity tank. Make sure we partition that. And this should be ready to use for our basin over here for making hyper experience. So we're also going to need a cable that is down here that is going to be feeding into the blaze burner. And you can see I just put that straw in there, and this guy now has a lovely, like, what is these called? Like the fun hats? I don't know, the drinking hats? There we go, that's what they're called. I'm gonna just stick with that. But anyways, export bus right here. We're gonna need two of them. One is going to be feeding it that fuel. So at thermal, refined fuel, this should get that blaze burner up and rolling. Not refined sunflower oil. That is the wrong thing. It is refined fuel. That's what we needed in here. So I have to break this. I should get my straw back, by the way. And there we go. Now it should be good. Aha! Beautiful. And it is now up and running and will just constantly stay in this state of superheated. Now, as far as this other export bus goes, we should be able to say liquid experience, glow ink, and lapis, and make sure that this is set to round robin mode, and it should feed the liquid experience and the items required, and should keep them round robining and in stock, just like you would hope it would. Now I did a little bit of cleanup work because I didn't want the cables just kind of sticking out, and I set this to the other side. You can see right here, but it's exactly the same way I had set up. I have the exporter on the bottom here, and the same is going to happen on this side. So a little bit of cleanup with a little bit of facading looks a whole lot better. Now, with that being said, if you have a situation like this and you need to filter these, there's actually a way you can do that. Just place your cable, like for example, on an empty container, and go ahead and set your filter inside of your card. For example, like this one has one in it. You can go ahead and hit like add, right? Let's actually set this hyper experience here, and we'll add it. And I'm going to filter specifically the hyper experience, just like that. And now I can take that card out and it actually stores that data, which is really, really useful. I'm going to go ahead and break this so there's nowhere for it to go, because that would also cause some problems. And then I'll just go ahead and make sure this can pull out. And then we'll set that filter in here, and it should filter the fluid. And now we shouldn't have any fluids being pulled out here yet. Not until we kick this on. So let's turn this all the way up. Let's get a gate. And that should be ready to rock and roll and start producing the hyper experience, just like that. Perfect. And so now we have hyper experience being produced. It looks super clean, by the way. And all I have to do now is on the bottom here, I just need to get a storage bus. Beautiful. So quick storage bus made, and then we'll set that and then make sure we partition that just like so. So now that I have hyper experience, there's only really one more thing that I really need to focus on, and that is actually making this colossal star Omega. This thing is huge and requires 422 trillion EMC just to craft. But I think I can 100% do this. So to be able to make the client star, we just need our regular client star, right? And then it starts to tier up. So we take the next step and we make this one, which is the Magnum. And I just continue by grabbing out the resources here for each one and making the next tier. So pretty straightforward in getting all of this crafted up. It's just going to take, like I said, just a little bit of time. And I'm going to start noticing the amount just decreasing that we can actually pull out each time, because it just immense amount of EMC costs on this item alone. There's already down to 22,000. It just keeps going further and further down. But I love this. So I don't know if I'll be running one of these things anytime soon, but that's going to store so much EMC on the player. I don't even know why you would ever need that much. It's essentially like a creative EMC storage. I guess if you were, I don't know, running like the Swift Wolf, I'm still using like a lower tier client star and have never even needed to worry about it. And that's with the Lifestone running and everything else. But I don't know, maybe there is a use for it. I would love for you guys to let me know down in the comments. Maybe you have found a use for this massive client star. I don't know, we're getting down to where we only have 5 in our storage, and this is going to allow us to craft the last one right there. The colossal Omega star. Oh my gosh, even it says it. Why do you even need this much EMC? You know, I don't know, but we need it for creative items, of course. Now, the next step in our mad scientist quest is going to involve making final star shards, utilizing that fading matter that we created earlier. So it says taking the fading matter and dropping it alongside a transmutation tablet, then detonating TNT nearby triggers a cataclysmic reaction, and it says the explosive force ruptures the fabric of space, unleashing a shard of the final star into the world, an artifact of unparalleled EMC potential. And so to be able to do this, we essentially need to take all that we've worked for and blow it up. Yes, that's how it's going to be. Now, of course, I can do this by hand, but I think I want to set up a pseudo automation for this, and I want to do it right here. So I want to convert this area into an area that allows me to drop the star and then have it blown up. And now I think I have just the blast resistant block that I've been looking for, and it's this right here. So this is the stable quantum bedrock. Very easy to actually craft this stuff from Cyclic, and this should be blast resistant. However, we have to right click it with redstone and it converts it into essentially bedrock. Now, it doesn't contain all of the properties of bedrock, but one that it does is its unbreakability. So we shouldn't be able to break this, and nor should TNT be able to destroy it. Now, so here's my plan. So I have a button here, and what I want to make sure can happen is that each one of these will fire simultaneously based off of the first ones. Aha, and it does. Okay, so all I need is one redstone signal to power this middle one, and essentially we'll have our two items. We'll have one item here, and if you didn't know, we can take some tiny TNT, for example, and we can actually dispense TNT pre-ignited from a dispenser. So this right here will dispense that TNT, and voila, it goes off, and we are ready to go. So technically, all I need to be able to power this is a redstone link on the back, put that in receiving mode, and by shift right clicking with an empty hand. And then right here, I can put a detonate button. And on the bottom here, if I make sure there's no water down here, I'll place this on the bottom of the block, and we'll do another redstone one. And we'll make sure that this is set like so. And then all I have to do is place a button here, and we should be able to rock and roll. When I push that, notice it deploys. Oh, and we should be ready to go for getting this to just happen. So there we go. I just grabbed out some of my faded matter. Of course, that does take a huge hit on here. And then we'll also need tablets. So I'll take a few tablets out. This works a little bit differently, but we can only fit 9 of these tablets in here at a time. With the fading matter, we can put in just like this. And so, these need to be actually turned into blocks, by the way. Thankfully, though, you can unblockify them, technically. So there we go. There's our first one. And remember, for getting started right now, we need at least 6 of them to make our first shard. So now that that's done, let's go ahead and remove this button. We don't need that anymore. And make sure this is locked and loaded with TNT. It is. Okay, moment of truth. All we have to do now is push the button, and all of the, oh, the block didn't get, oh no. Okay, so this completely changes my setup here. So instead of this, I think being, oh, this is really hard to break too. And I think the reason it's hard to break is because you need a ProjectE pick to be able to break it. Let me grab this. There we go. That is much, much quicker. Instead of it being a dispenser, we'll do a dropper. And that will prevent the block from being placed. Beautiful. And then, now, moment of truth. All the items should get dropped. And when that TNT goes off, it should hopefully combine them. It did not combine them. So this is something that can potentially happen. I'm going to try this again. I might have to make sure they're in the same block space. No! So I might have come up with a solution to this problem, because I think they need to be in the same sort of block space that is near the TNT. For example, let's say I want them to be like right here, for example. I want the items to specifically go right here. Well, there's actually a dropper that can precisely do this. And that is the precise dropper from Cyclic. So pretty cool little device here. Now it does have a couple of things that you are going to have to configure in order to get it to work properly. And it only has one slot, meaning that it is going to be a little bit weird on how we actually feed this items, but I'll talk about that here in a second. Now, the main thing that we need to talk about is this GPS card. So by default, it will actually assign the face in front of it is where it's going to drop, like said items, but you can actually specify specifically where you want it to drop. So I want it to drop right here in this location. And what this will do is this will now send any item that I have go into this slot directly to this location, which is pretty darn cool. So those items should go right here, both of them. Now, this is where the delay is kind of important. We want this to activate on a redstone signal, but we want this delay, and the delay may seem a little bit weird in how it works. So the delay essentially is going to delay how many operations happen while it has redstone. And we want this to at least be set to 20, and we want our count to stay 1. We only want it to send 1 item at a time, and we want it to be delayed because I don't want it to do multiple operations within the pulse of that button down there. If we were sending in a quick pulse, it wouldn't do this. But if we are sending it with a button signal, we got to make sure that we take this delay up a little bit. Now, we also need power on these. So that's pretty straightforward. We can just use a gate to power them. And they will accept the same redstone signal that we were just feeding. So we should be good for the most part. And I kind of want to test this by using this block of amethyst first with our TNT. So let's go ahead and put like half a stack of amethyst in here and here. And what we should see happen is the amethyst gets spawned directly in that location. And there we go. Then it gets annihilated. And that's exactly what I want. Perfect. Now on the back of this dropper, I'm going to be sending it tablets through this MK6. So let's go ahead and get the tablet here. And we shouldn't have to worry about too much here. All I have to do is just simply place the tablet in and say, hey, keep a tablet in stock. And you can see there is now a tablet in there. Beautiful. And then of course, the most expensive thing, which is Trillions VMC, which is this fading matter block. And now to push the button again and see if this functions. So it placed the items. There's the TNT. And voila, there's our star. So this makes making this so much easier because I can now just click a button and I can make a star shard anytime I need one. Oh, that is so much easier. So now between making the liquid hyper experience and also getting the star shards ready to go, we are on our way to creating the final star shard, which I honestly feel like actually unlocks the mod pack, because at that point, making creative items allows you to build upon this infrastructure that pre-exists, making things able to be scaled a bit higher, and it also allows you to experiment a lot more. And I wanted this to be an important part of the pack. I wanted you to get access to creative items and still technically need a use for them. So this is kind of where I want to go with this. I want to provide these creative tanks and these creative things to allow you to technically automate things that you may have never wanted to do because of the grind associated with some of them. And so with that, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And well, hopefully you've learned something new, whether it was about this particular dropper thing that is above me, or how to automate the hyper experience, or how to get set up the fading matter. That's also another important part of this pack. And guys, of course, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Give this video a huge thumbs up as well, and comment down below what was your favorite part of today's video or your least favorite part. It's up to you. And guys, of course, with that, it's now time for me to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that huge thanks is going to go out to Phoenix. I'm going to say Wheelie. Maybe it's Wheelie. Maybe it's Wheelie. I have no idea. Thank you so much for your amazing support and choosing to support me over on the Discord by becoming a Discord premium member and supporting me in one of the best ways possible. Gaining access to supporter servers and world downloads and all kinds of other fun shenanigans that happen over the Discord. So be sure to check out the Discord, link down in the description below. And of course, guys, check me out over on Twitch, twitch.tv/ChosenArchitect, where I do live stream roughly 3 days a week, and I would love to see you guys over there. And with that being said, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. And as always, thanks for watching. Bye, guys. Man, all these years and I still can't get that outro right.